Welcome back to America Decides. President-elect Trump will return to the White House next year with the strength of a Republican-controlled Senate and quite likely a Republican-led House of Representatives. Now, CBS News has still not projected control of the House of Representatives, but we currently characterize it as lean Republican. Some Senate races also remain undecided, but as you well know by now, Republicans have already crossed the threshold of 50 seats. Jessica Taylor and Daniella Diaz are here. Jessica is a Senate and Governor's editor for the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter. Daniella is a congressional reporter for Politico. Jessica, I want to start with you. Phenomenon that we saw in this election that we did not see in 2016 when Trump prevailed. Trump in 2016 ran behind Senate candidates. This time he led most of them.
He did.
That's an interesting dynamic. Dig in deeper for
And
us.
that's why, even though Trump swept all of these swing states, that probably Republican Senate candidates, we know that they have lost in Michigan and Wisconsin, and also are probably going to lose in, even though those races aren't called yet, in Arizona and in Nevada. I think this was a resources question. You saw a lot of these candidates run behind Democrats on money, but also a lot of these races were closer. So, with Wisconsin, Michigan, much smaller margin for Alyssa Slotkin there in Michigan and Tammy Baldwin there in Wisconsin to outperform. The race, I don't think you all have called it yet. The Associated Press has in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
With David McCormick there. I do think that he is going to win there. We ultimately didn't see, some of these Senate candidates run ahead of Harris as much as we thought that she might. In fact, we don't have the final numbers yet, but Casey ran about even or even slightly behind. But I think a lot of these people, they came out to vote for Trump. And,
yes, they did.
And they either left that ballot blank, or in Wisconsin, actually, there's an America First candidate that Democrats helped get on the ballot, and a Libertarian candidate that's more than the margin. In Nevada, you can vote for none of these candidates, and that might be enough of a margin. So I think these candidates weren't as well known. We saw certainly in 2022 that sort of that Trump, the Trump brand wasn't transferable. I think he's going, he's helped drive turnout in some places, but Republican Senate candidates, not completely the beneficiary, but the candidates that were underfunded, like Carrie Lake, who was controversial in and of herself, and Mike Rogers in Michigan, they lacked in resources. The candidates that were better funded, like David McCormick, look like they're going to prevail.
And he brought some of his own money to the table. Daniella, what's the story of the House as we currently know it?
I've been talking to dozens of Democrats, dozens of Republicans, and it really seems that, as CBS just characterized it, it's leaning Republican.
I mean, Democrats grimly expect Republicans to have the majority.
They do, and they are optimistic still, considering a lot of votes are still being counted in the West. There's some California races that are really, really close. They're hoping they can maybe flip some of those seats. Mike Garcia, Valadao, speaking of just a couple of Republicans that they're keeping an eye on. But really, overall, it really shows that Democrats were not able to flip the House. I mean, piggybacking off what Jessica just said, Trump really was a major character when it came to turnout in this election, and you're seeing that with Democratic races, and it seems that Republicans are going to keep a majority.
And this is a phenomenon that the country needs to take on board. That when Trump is on the ballot, it is a fundamentally different election, because this election, its results bear no relationship to 2022. Look at Pennsylvania, 2022. Fetterman and Josh Shapiro surged to victory. I think 2 years later, in a statewide race, the results are almost exactly the opposite.
I mean, I think Democrats fundamentally, and the Biden administration fundamentally misread 2022 as a mandate. When in Pennsylvania there, you had two very underperforming, weak candidates in that regard. And so you had weaker candidates. Republicans recruited better candidates. They cleared the primary there in Pennsylvania, this time for David McCormick. They cleared the primary for Tim Sheehy in Montana. And they, again, with the exception of Arizona, they were not sort of these fundamentally flawed candidates that they had. And I think, I think Democrats sort of took the wrong lessons away, that abortion was going to be the driving factor, when in fact it was the economy, and that sort of Democrats broke that historic streak in 2022 in spite of where the Biden administration was.
Danielle, I want to talk to you about something you wrote about Latino voters and the Democrats hemorrhaging in this subcategory of the American electorate, though a rising in importance category in the American electorate. What have you learned? What would you say are the biggest takeaways from what we saw Tuesday?
Latino voters were always a demographic that voted Democrat. And it seems that this election, Democrats really bet that Latino voters would turn out and vote for Kamala Harris and their down ballot candidates. That is not what happened. I was in Texas on election night. I was with Colin Allred. The exit poll showed, we were just talking about this, that Latino voters turned out for Ted Cruz. And that is the case across so many of these states where Latino voters make up such a huge block of the voters.
That was evident in two particular Texas counties, Hidalgo and Starr County.
Those are I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, so very familiar with those counties. And those were all three counties, Starr, Hidalgo, and Cameron County, that you saw really strong numbers for Donald Trump, numbers that you didn't see in the last two elections. And that's really showing, and to know, that is a predominantly Latino, these are predominantly Latino counties, 90% Latino voters, really shows the stronghold that Trump has, that the Republicans have right now on Latino voters.
Does that flow through economic calculations principally, or other cultural dimensions as well, based on your reporting?
I mean, I'm very familiar with what Latinos think, and Trump really resonated with them. Democrats, I mean, there's a lot of pointing of fingers happening right now within the Democratic Party.
And will continue to be.
And will continue to be. They're dissecting what happened, what went wrong. But really what I'm hearing from Latino voters is it's the economy. They need to pay their bills. They need to pay rent. And they wanted change. They saw Harris as a continuation of the past administration, and they voted for a change.
Well, look at the Latino candidate that looks to be successful there in Arizona, Ruben Gallego. He talked a lot about those issues.
Jessica Taylor, Daniella Diaz, thank you so much. Great conversation. Really appreciate it.